Welcome back for Hunter x Hunter Chapter 411 talk. We are back from hiatus for another run of 10 chapters, and I'm ready to get right into it. I'm assuming you're ready, you've just read the chapter, and so I don't need to waste your time with a page-by-page summary type of thing. I'm sure you're up to speed, you're ready to contemplate the big questions with me, and I say we jump to the end of the chapter and ask ourselves, what is Kurapika talking about? How is Wobble not eligible for the Succession War? Is this true? Is this not true? Why is he saying it? First, let's remind ourselves what the conditions are for taking part in the war. We learned this way back in chapter 349, which was released in the year 2014. Wow, let's see what we got. Only the children of the legal wives of King Nasubi who board the Black Whale and take part in the departure ceremony. So an eligible prince doesn't need to be the child of Nasubi, just the child of one of his wives by any father. And we got a reminder of this fact as recently as chapter 401, when Longi introduced the idea that one of the princes was fathered by Beyond Netero. This baby in room 1014 has boarded the Black Whale and taken part in the departure ceremony, so for her to be truly ineligible, we have two options. One, she's not Oito's daughter, or two, Oito is not a legal wife of King Nasubi. Friends, I don't buy either of these ideas. Spoilers, I think Wobble is a perfectly eligible competitor and Kurapika is lying, but for the sake of completeness, let's consider. Maybe Oito did a baby swap before getting on board the whale, and so Wobble isn't actually Wobble. But if that were true and the point was for Oito to sacrifice herself and this new mystery baby she acquired somewhere, all to keep the real Wobble's survival a secret, then I don't think Oito would be willing to share that information. Regardless of what strategy Kurapika's cooked up, if it sacrifices the real Wobble back on land, then Oito's not going to go for it. So this will not be the argument. Somewhat more likely is an argument about her marriage being nullified, possibly by infidelity, but even if there were some bylaw about CAC and royal marriages that says that marriage is annulled in the case of infidelity, the marriage was not annulled when Oito and Wobble got on the ship, or when the Succession War began. The idea that a divorce now would retroactively invalidate Wobble's entry into the contest just doesn't sound convincing to me. I don't think anyone would buy it, and even if they sort of bought it, this ineligibility idea would never stop one of the elder princes from killing Wobble anyway just to be safe. So Wobble does meet the conditions we were told about, she is eligible for the war, and Kurapika is full of it. Let's think about what he's trying to do here. Kurapika just formed an alliance with Longi, and part of the deal is that if he identifies Beyond's child among the princes before Tebeba is eliminated, he gets to borrow Longi's contract ability, which would be great for him. So he's got two bonus objectives in the war on top of everything else. Figure out who around here's got the Netero genes and keep Tebeba alive. He also received Kaiser's letter from Kacho and got Oito's permission to publish the contents, or at least threaten to publish the contents at the Nen class and see who comes forward to stop him. It's a piece of bait. You can put it out there, see who bites. So you probably see where I'm going with this. He's going to use the letter as bait to catch the Beyond baby. Here's how it could go down. I think Kurapika is going to say, Wobble's not eligible because Nasubi is not the father. And he might play dumb, like he doesn't know the conditions we just talked about, or he might try to sell everyone on a deduction about Nen, like, the sacrifice that powers the war is only strong enough because it's the king's bloodline, and so without the king's blood, it's not going to work, therefore Wobble's not really in the war. He can make that deduction sound reasonable enough that even if nobody really buys it, as they shouldn't, they might at least believe that he believes it. But nobody really has to buy it, that's fine, because what's important is that Kurapika gets everyone thinking about this prince not fathered by Nasubi situation. And then he can say, oh yeah, on a related note, I promised to tell you all about that letter I got from Kacho. You know, no sense keeping secrets, here I go. And then Kurapika anticipates that someone is going to interrupt him. Someone who's very suspicious of the timing here. Like, why wait until now to reveal Wobble's supposed ineligibility unless the letter is somehow related to this fathership question? And if the letter is related, the obvious inference is that it might reveal the Beyond baby's identity. So whoever interrupts and says, hey, don't read us the letter, all the letters are lies anyway, etc. However they stop him, that person is either working for the Beyond baby prince, or they're working directly for Beyond himself, and maybe they've been planted into the retinue of a different prince, the way Longi was. It could even be the silent majority user for all we know. Wouldn't that be interesting? But it'll be someone who knows the Beyond baby's identity and wants to keep it a secret. Now, having flushed them out like this, Kurapika can meet with them in private after class, and negotiations can proceed from there. Kurapika is very good in interview situations, so whether they can make a deal amicably or not, he can probably get the information he's looking for. So, why the lie about Wobble being ineligible? My answer is as a way to bluff that he knows about the real Beyond baby, so that someone who does know about the Beyond baby will tip their hand. As for whether Wobble is actually a Beyond baby or not, the truth doesn't matter for the sake of this bluff, so who knows? If Beyond is the father, maybe that explains why Silent Majority has been hovering around since the start of the war. But this is not another Silent Majority video, so let's move on. Ultimately, the point is for Kurapika to get his hands on Longi's contract ability, which might be used to forge an unlikely alliance in the future. Have to wait and see on that one. It should be noted that Longi herself wants to murder any prince who was fathered by Beyond, so Kurapika's definitely going to tell her that he made the story up. Alright, that was my first big question. Let's turn back a few pages and consider big question number 2. As Furikov points out, this lengthy discourse on Nen vows and risks and limitations all adds up to the idea that the succession war ceremony might fail if more than one prince survives. Kurapika's arguing that this is part of the risk of the ceremony, and that risk is what's supplying the power to make the Nen beasts work. We get the idea. But why alert everyone to this deduction he's made, especially the elder princes? Like, he's telling them flat out that the younger and weaker princes have a good reason to run and hide. So if a guy like Benjamin doesn't want to play hide and seek across all the lower decks of the Black Whale, he should cull his younger siblings ASAP. Kind of a strange thing to say when you're working for the 14th Prince, and it goes without saying, but the claim about ineligibility is not going to be any kind of shield against Ben. So, once again, we ask, what is Kurapika doing here? I think he's doing two things with this explanation. First, he's conveying to the lower princes, via the guards that they've sent to the Nen class, that this hope of survival does exist. Remember that the hope of the weak princes until about yesterday was 9th Prince Halkenberg. As Oito told us before we were even on the boat, Halkenberg's image would be hurt the most by info about the war leaking out after he won, so the idea was to blackmail him into sparing the weak princes in exchange for their silence. I guess Oito had details about the war written down in a safety deposit box or something. So with Halkenberg seemingly dead, Kurapika is offering the weak princes this other path to survival, both to keep their morale up, and maybe to offer himself as a sort of Halkenberg replacement. Maybe the Mariam faction or the Fugetsu faction will reach out and say, hey, we'd like to survive the war, what should we do? Let's coordinate. It's alliance outreach to any prince who'd be okay with the Huiguoro dynasty ending because the succession contest failed. Of course, that leaves the half dozen or so princes who would not be satisfied with that outcome, who will probably see this as a reason to become more aggressive, yeah. But keep in mind that this deadline Kurapika is talking about is still more than 6 weeks away. An elder prince should not really feel like they have to kill everyone right now on the basis of this revelation, unless that prince were an extremely impatient hothead prone to overreacting and just waiting for an excuse to pull the trigger. That happens to describe First Prince Benjamin perfectly. And so the second thing I think Kurapika is doing is baiting Benjamin into forcing the issue. Benjamin's been in the driver's seat since the war began, and he's actually gaining intel about the other princes and their spirit beasts faster than anyone else, since his guards are everywhere. The status quo only favors him, and if nothing provokes him into jumping the gun, he'll probably keep rotating his private army through their assassination protocol and rack up kill after kill with no risk. This is bad for Kurapika because Tubeppa is on deck for assassination, and don't forget Kurapika's bonus objective right now, keep Tubeppa alive for the sake of the Longi contract. Tubeppa knows that she's being targeted right now. She's looked into the movements of Ben's private army and noticed that Rihan was with Saleh Saleh for a while, and then Yushahi, and then he died. Now Rihan is in her room. She knows what that means, and she may have informed Kurapika about it through Longi. So in general, baiting Benjamin into doing something hasty is the best way to deal with him, because he'll probably trip over some spirit beast whose power he doesn't know yet and get himself killed. But in specific, baiting him to change course from what he's doing now is essential for Tubeppa to make it through the week. Now there's actually a third, less direct result of sharing this info about Nen that can affect the war with the whole class. This was info Kurapika promised to Zhonglei back in their first meeting, with the obvious understanding that it would be shared more exclusively than this. The desire for this specific promised piece of intel is also why Dwazil's guard Slaka was assigned to room 1014 in the first place. Both Dwazil and Zhonglei expected some advantage out of the intel, and they haven't gotten it. Now, Dwazil isn't really in a position to complain, since she never offered Kurapika anything in return, but Zhonglei has been offering his protection, and this whole deception will probably throw a spoke in their alliance. Plus, the Mutual Surrender Pact is pretty much worthless now, since Zhonglei won't give up his dynasty to spare his weaker allies, and they all know it. But if we look at their most recent meeting, it seems like Kurapika wasn't loving this arrangement anyway. He was already thinking about Benjamin jumping the gun and wanting to declare special martial law, and an easy pretext for doing that would be to trigger an all-out mafia war on the lower decks. Ben could get that result by assassinating any of the mafia sponsors among the princes, so being tight with any of these three isn't safe. especially if Ben is in the mood to hurry things up. Now, Kurapika is putting Ben in the mood to hurry things up, so if there's a good time to create some distance between himself and Zhonglei, it is right now. Of course, it's an even better time than Kurapika realizes because he doesn't know what's been happening with Hulkenberg, but we're not there yet. So why tell everyone about the Succession War's limits and how the whole thing could fail? It gives hope to potential allies, it provokes Ben into doing something stupid, it provokes Ben into doing anything other than killing Tebepa, which is what he's doing at the moment, and it might torpedo the Zhonglei alliance, but that might be a good thing anyway. Okay, in my opinion, those were the two big must-ask questions about the chapter. Those were the answers I came up with, so now let's do a little cleanup. When Kurapika thinks about using the ensuing chaos to our advantage, I think it's a callback to chapter 358 when he was already telling Oita about the possibility of sneaking down to the lower decks. I assumed he wouldn't want to do this until after getting the chance to meet Serednik, but special martial law is a pretty good reason to get off tier 1 in a hurry, even if they're going to return later. Anyway, maybe Kurapika and Oita will both dress up as maids to effect their escape. We know he can pull it off. This panel reminds us that Danjin promised to bring Serednik a souvenir to prove he hasn't been manipulated by the Nen class. I do not think Serednik forgets about this kind of thing, so Danjin seems pretty relaxed right now, but I wouldn't be if I were him. Not too much else to say about that. I do love the Sarah Hell makeup tutorial we get here. I want to point out that killing Wobble isn't really the goal. The have-nots are deliberately going after an unimportant target because they want to flush out any Nen exorcists. With that in mind, if Sarah Hell kills herself to curse Wobble and then an exorcist saves Wobble, who's gonna report on what happened, or the identity of the exorcist? If no one gets the intel, the mission's a failure. This points to some other agent of Camilla or Dwazel being in the room. We might suspect Toby, who works for Dwazel, or this new guy Javietti, who also works for Dwazel. Seems like he wants to make contact with Camilla's guards, implying that he's not already in contact with them, but who knows. Maybe the have-nots just plan to ask them what happened after the fact. I want to shout out Voracious Drake for another great blog post translating this kind of untranslatable wordplay. You should just go read it. I don't speak Japanese, but the gist is that the word matsuri, meaning festival or ritual, can be expressed by 4 different kanji with 4 different connotations. And the idea is that the different parts of the Succession War embody all 4 of those meanings, so it's a festival in every sense of the word. There's some black comedy here with Togashi describing the bloodbath on the Black Whale with the same term used for a cute street festival. I'm probably only comprehending about half of this, but I love reading translation notes. I would read 10 of them per page of manga if that much notation were available. Now, without going into recap mode and regurgitating this whole speech to you, I do want to quickly point out that the burial ritual aspect of the war seems to correspond to our old friend, the sarcophagus party room. The 3 treasures of the Kakin royalty that Krollo's after may correspond to the other 3 aspects. And while we're on the subject of rules and limitations for how the Succession War proceeds, I want to quickly remind us of Nasubi's claim to Hulkenberg that he's part of the ceremony now and can't die until it's over. So if Kurapika's looking for an off switch for the war, Nasubi and the treasures are both good options. And that's all from me. As always, this is just my analysis of the chapter. I enjoy trying to connect all these dots. Sometimes I'm going to get things wrong, but that's part of the fun for me. If you think I've missed something, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me once again, and I'll see you next week.